Here we are. Welcome back to Race and Ethnic Relations on Campus podcast show. My name is Dr. B, and I want to welcome you to our show. Again, this is show number 17. Show number 17, and it's entitled Race and Ethnic Relations on Campus, Teaching a Race Relations Seminar, Day 1. Yes, Day 1. We're going to take, welcome back. We're going to take a little change in our direction with these next several podcast shows. With the previous podcast shows, we were talking about controversial topics. And also, one of the controversial topics that we talked about in my class is protesting U.S. President Donald Trump. And now we're going to take, I think it's important to take another turn, and that is to actually get into the reason why I wrote my book in 2018, and which is very popular now in 2019 and 2020, Race and Ethnic Relations on Campus, Understanding Empowerment and Solutions for College Students. So I'm getting back to not necessarily the topics of the course, but why I wrote this particular book and why it's so important for college students and why it's so important for those individuals who want to teach a race and ethnic relations class at the college level. It's not the easiest thing to do, particularly in 2019 and 2020. So that's the setup. First, I want to thank our sponsors. I want to thank Podbean for showcasing us on their platform, Podbean. I want to thank iTunes, Apple Podcasts. I want to thank Google Play, Google Music, Google Play. I want to thank Spotify, and of course I want to thank YouTube. And then I also want to thank our special host, iHeartRadio for hosting us and showcasing our shows on iHeartRadio. Again, I'm getting back to the basis of this of our book, my book, Race and Ethnic Relations on Campus: Understanding Empowerment and Solutions for College Students, published by ABC Clio Prager Publishers in 2018. And it's really taking off to another level. And matter of fact, I will be promoting it in 2020 at various conferences, specifically for librarians and administrators throughout the year at different book conferences. And I will let you know which book conferences I will be appearing at to provide even more clarity on the book. But right now, I want to go through Teaching a Race Relations Seminar, Day 1. And this is actually a condensed version. This is in the final portions of my book, and actually Teaching Strategies, Part 6. And I think it would be refreshing to perhaps read each and every day. So this is Day 1, because again, it's not the easiest thing to do, to make the switch. And actually I started this class in 2016, and it was an honor seminar, and an honor seminar at the university at ECU is a much more smaller class, defined class on a specific topic, and this is specifically for honor students in honors college. So the level of engagement is a bit more intense, higher, and direct, innovative, and yet I offer this class as, again, a springboard to issues that I've been wanting to talk about at the university for quite some time. And I actually had a class on this years ago before I started this at another university, Indiana University. So here is, let me get straight to the what I put in Day 1 of my journal. This is fieldwork journal notes, and this is a condensed version, so it's not the entire thing. So just take a little pause, and I'm going to read portions of this. I may read the entire Day 1, I don't know, depending on how much time. But let me just start off with Day 1. Just think about, from my perspective as a professor, getting the very first interactions with my students, with my college students, undergraduate students. Here we go. It's day one for my new honors seminar course on race relations, and quite frankly, I am always a bit nervous to meet my brand new class each semester, particularly this one, all honor students. No matter how long I have been teaching college classes, and this is year 30, I still feel anxious on the first day. The classroom is located in our honors college. As I arrived in the building and walked into the seminar room, there were some of my students seated toward the very back of the room. I greeted them and then quickly realized that I had to get situated at the front of the seminar room, thereby placing myself farther away from where the students were sitting. Once I got situated by the lectern and the interactive whiteboard podium, I looked back at the students, and they were, yes, all definitely seated at the back of the seminar room. So, here was the moment at the very beginning of this class. Do I let the students stay seated toward the back of the seminar room, or encourage them to move forward? They looked real comfortable sitting in their chairs and were chatting away with one another and did not even think about moving as I got situated. Yet the most important issue of my seminar presented itself right then as well. How are these students reacting to, quotes, how are these students reacting to an African American professor? Of course, they knew what I looked like from my photo that I posted on the course Blackboard contact page. Yet it is completely different issue when students have to confront a person of color faculty member, particularly an African American male teaching race relations, where all of my students were Caucasian females. Talk about a tenuous situation. I smiled, took a quick little joke, and asked the students to sit closer. So there I was in the front. And now the course begins. Fortunately, there was no hesitation on their part, and they collectively moved closer to where I was seated. So after they got situated, it was the time for me to ease them more into how I teach, how I interact with students, and how we were going to examine and discuss such a sensitive topic, race relations, in this class. Next, I told another quick joke about first day classes, and I could tell that students were easing up a little bit more. That was another positive signal for me in that I was reducing their anxiety and helping them to perceive me as just another professor beginning to teach a new class. I began to go over the syllabus and all of the major requirements for the course, but I went too far. Before I went too far into the syllabus, I reminded myself to slow down even further in order to give my new students more background information about myself. Sometimes I forget that this is the key for me as an instructor, particularly as an African American instructor, to spend extra time sharing my personal and professional background, allowing them to feel more at ease, comfortable, and relatable to me so that they can individually open up more about themselves much earlier in the semester. Basically, what I shared with my students was that I came from a small Midwestern town in Ohio and attended a mainstream mid-American university in which I was a part of a minority student population consisting of less than 1% of the total student population. And the total student population there was approximately 20,000 at that time. This was my college situation throughout my undergraduate schooling and my first 2 years of graduate school. At that point in the class, I said to my students, quote, "I've always been in this situation in academia, and it's not a big deal to me. It's other people who make it a big deal." Once I shared this story with my students, I could definitely see that all of them felt even more at ease with my lecture style and with me as a professor. Thus, I accomplished one of my major objectives for the first day: get the students to feel relaxed and ready to focus on the topic at hand with a black professor. My next major objective was to emphasize to my students about the uniqueness of this seminar, and that they would have the opportunity to change how their university addressed race relations issues, because they would share their ideas and solutions with the top administrator at East Carolina University, the chancellor. Once I emphasized this key point, I could sense that they were genuinely excited about this potential outcome of the class. That's when I felt that they were starting to commit themselves to the overall impact of this class. Nonetheless, for us to actually get there, I also emphasized to my students that each student must become a leader in her own right by participating in class discussion, writing papers in which she must strongly express and justify her opinions, debate an issue with her colleagues, and interact with all the guest lecturers that came to our class, along with being fully involved when we took our field trip to a large state university. I emphasized individual leadership first, because I felt that many students struggle with expressing themselves, particularly with the subject matter of race relations. Then I emphasized group leadership, because they would collectively develop their own race relations solutions and present them to the dean of the college and then to the chancellor of the university. These race relations solutions would represent the first set of ideals and strategies originating from ECU students, not administrators. It was clear they felt more empowered. After completing these two major objectives for the first class, I gave the class a fun writing assignment consisting of only 1 to 2 pages. The assignment went as follows. 1. Discuss how you or your friends have been affected by race relations issues here at ECU. If you or your friends have not, just say, "I have not been affected at all." 2. State whether or not we need a regular forum to talk about race relations here at ECU. So there you go. There you go. Those are the two major objectives for the first class. That was day 1. And I remember it very vividly in 2016. And that was the biggest challenge. The first thing is to make my students comfortable with me as an African American black male, and I can sense that many of them never had an African American professor, and you could just see it on their face. So I had to share certain personal stories, relate to them when I was going to college, when I was at a college, a university, being the one and only, few minorities at the university, just within the dynamics of the university, and how I had to adjust to being a minority and work with race relations on that end as a student long time ago, and coming from a small town. And here, many of these students, my students in the class, they came from small towns. and they are unsure of how to relate to other folks, people of color. But that's what I had to do the very first day, to break down those misperceptions, sometimes stereotypes, and most of it was just uncertainty and anxiety. And they had it, I had it as well. And that always helps me get more comfortable talking about very sensitive, politically charged, culturally sensitive issues. And matter of fact, those few moments, those subtle moments are key in developing positive race relations between instructor and student. You always want to, here's a little tip, you always want to develop positive strategies, positive interactions with your students of all backgrounds, but particularly students who are different than you. So I kind of have to reach out, and at that moment on day one, just the subtle interactions, encouraging them to sit closer in the seminar, make them feel comfortable, start interacting in a different way, not formal, but more kind of like casual, informal, like a regular dialogue. And then you can slowly, step by step, get into some of the sensitive issues that I knew we had to get into. But that very first day, it was very tense. You can feel it. You can feel the tenseness in the seminar room. And it was my first time teaching honor students. So I was prepared for a different type of dialogue. And it actually played itself out throughout the entire seminar. The honor students are very well prepared, intellectually engaging, intellectually ready. They're very astute. And you, as an instructor, you really have to explain yourself at several different levels. So I did a lot of prep. And sometimes as much prep that you do for a class is still not enough for honor students. So I recognize that. Yet, since the honor students primarily consist of all Caucasian females, I had to really work in a different way to make sure they feel comfortable in dialoguing with me on a regular basis. So that first day was very, very challenging, but I was looking forward to it. And yet I didn't. I thought it was going to. Initially, thought I would have, a bit of a diverse class, but it was fine. I mean, it really surprised me by the end, where we actually ended up what we ended up doing in the class. Just completely amazing. That was the greatest thing about this first seminar class. From where we started to where we ended, it was just totally amazing. And it surprised a lot of, it surprised the students, it surprised the administrators, and also it surprised me. So that was the biggest thing. You have to start somewhere. And sometimes it's not going to be the most comfortable situation when you start off a seminars class on teaching race relations, but you have to take it step by step, slowly, but move in a positive direction, not in a negative direction, but move in a positive, methodical direction when you're starting to teach a race relations class. And I was really emphasizing individual leadership and group leadership. Individual leadership is very, very important, because sometimes individuals don't realize how much direction and knowledge base that they have. So, and encourage them to be their own individual leader. And then, not just, and in honors, among honor students, you have a lot of individual leaders. All of them are individual leaders for the most part in their own way. But then you have to bring them in a group, and the group dynamics will change. And then you truly find out who are those group leaders who are not just individual leaders, but they're dynamic in their own way, and they kind of take charge and direction of the group. And that kind of played itself out very quickly among these honor students. So I emphasize individual leadership and group leadership. That's where things start to frame out and find direction among these very highly skilled, highly intelligent honor students. So, and then I gave them a fun assignment at the end of the seminar. So there you go. That was day one, and and that's a condensed version of day one. So I just want to share with you, and I'm going to go through the next couple of days as well in this the next couple of podcasts, or maybe several podcast shows. So this is show number 17, Race and Ethnic Relations on Campus podcast show, teaching a race relations seminar, day one. I am Dr. B. I want to thank Podbean again, Podbean for showcasing us on their platform. I want to thank iTunes, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify. I want to thank YouTube, and of course I want to thank iHeartRadio. Thank you, iHeartRadio, and continue to share with the listening audience our podcast show. So this is Dr. B, and I want to thank you again for listening, and peace out, folks. This is Ethnic and Relations on Campus podcast show. Peace out.